Welcome to Rationality, Reason, and Reality. I'm Supernova. Today I'm going to take a little diversion, a break away from logic, to discuss why I'm an atheist and you ought to be too. As you could probably tell by the title up there, why I'm an atheist and you ought to be too. Now, I read a book called Think Like a Freak by the authors of Freakonomics a few weeks back when it came out, and they discuss behavioral economics and how to think rationally, stuff that I'm really interested in. And one of the things they discussed is how to convince people who don't want to be convinced. And a tip that they gave was to tell a story, not an anecdote, because that's personal experience, and those only convince people who actually had the personal experience and nobody else. But a story, like an analogy, something that makes your point more visual and people can relate to it. My story is The Emperor's New Clothes. You've probably heard the story, but if you haven't, let me tell it to you very quick. There was an emperor in a not so far away land who was very vain. He liked to wear the finest clothes, and so he would have tailors make him these new threads. And tailors who weren't up to snuff could be jailed or killed because he was the emperor. He could do what he wanted. And when he hired this particular tailor, the tailor knew that he was one of those guys who was bound to fail. And so instead of trying to sell the emperor some new clothes, he sold him a story. He said, I've made these fine clothes for you out of a thread that's invisible, that can't be seen by fools. But people who aren't foolish can see it just fine. And the king, not wanting to be thought of as a fool, said that he saw the clothes and that they were beautiful and complimented the tailor. Then he wore these clothes, supposedly, went out naked to his court to show off his clothes. And all the people in the court, naturally not wanting to be seen as fools, also complimented him and told him what fine clothes he was wearing. And then the emperor proceeded to walk through the streets of a nearby village, showing off his supposed new clothes. And the townspeople, also not wanting to be seen as fools, threw all these compliments of how beautiful they were. But a little boy in the crowd who didn't understand the social conditions, the reason why everybody else was going along with the story, pointed out the obvious and said, the emperor has no clothes. And this broke the spell, and everybody suddenly realized the king was naked and laughed about it, and the emperor was very embarrassed. I would contend that this is not how the story would end in real life. Somebody would simply say to the boy, you're a fool, and they'd go on in their mass delusion, because that's what this is. This is a story of mass delusion, just like religion. People have never seen a God. They've never felt a God, heard a God. These things are all in their head. They're believing because all of their friends and family believe. It's because of the peer pressure. At least that's one of the main reasons, if not the only reason. And it's funny because the hero of the story is the little boy. All of us want to think that we are that skeptical little boy who, when surrounded by people who are obviously believing in a lie, would point out the truth despite whatever retaliation we might get from being that singled out person. But apparently that's not the way it would work in real life. And we know this because of experiment. There's a scientist named Solomon Asch who ran what's well known as the Asch conformity experiment, where he put up some different length lines up on a wall and would show another line one at a time to test subjects and say, what line in this chart is the same size as this line? Can you match them up? And it was a very easy test. In the control group where people weren't pressured at all, 98% of them got 20 out of 20 questions correct. So of course it was very easy. Anybody could do it. But when he put in the peer pressure, when he had three confederates, three people who were secretly working with him, all point out the same wrong answer, test subjects would agree with these total strangers and give a wrong answer, despite that they obviously knew the right answer and knew that wasn't it. And out of 20 questions, 75% of test subjects would get at least one wrong through peer pressure. And of course, through continued experiments, we know that if that number increases from 3 to more, that percentage of people who get all of them right go down. If among that group are friends or family, the percentage goes down. If among that group there's an authority figure, that percentage goes down. All of us are in some way misled just because we want to join a community. We want to be social. We don't want to be ostracized or marginalized or part of the group out on the fringe all by our lonesome. None of us want that. And so we are willing to sacrifice the truth sometimes in order to belong, just to fit in. And of course, this is one of the main drivers of religion. It's very obvious. And for instance, a town in America where there are a majority of Christians and no Muslims, somebody who's atheist doesn't convert to Islam. There's absolutely no pressure for them to do so. If they convert to a religion, it's going to be the same one as their friends and family and peers who are saying, hey, this is the religion we believe in and this is why you should join it. They'll be pressured into it because they want to join that larger community. And so why I am an atheist is because I'm not one of those people. I would probably be among that 25% or less who, upon seeing everybody believing in something that isn't true, would go against them and say, no, this is the truth, and I value the truth more than being part of a community. I'm a skeptic. I want evidence. The emperor never had any clothes, no matter how many people believed in it. And there were many emperors without clothes. There are many religions all over the world. And we can obviously see, if you are a Christian or a Muslim or whatever, you can see in every other religion that their God doesn't exist. It's very obvious. You don't see any evidence for it either, just like I don't. And you would agree with me fully that, yeah, obviously all those people are delusional, but did you ever consider that you might be among one of those crowds too? Why wouldn't you be? Well, perhaps because of special pleading, as I've mentioned before, thinking you're the exception. But anyway, I hope this was beneficial to you. And if you're an atheist watching this, as you probably are, because I know how the self-selection works, feel free to pass on the story as your own. You could share the video, and of course I'd like that because I'd love a following as any YouTuber would. But I'd be happy to share the story with you. Use the Emperor's New Clothes as your own. It's a great story of mass delusion. Everybody recognizes mass delusion, and I think we'd all like to be that little boy who points towards the truth. Anyway, till next time, peace out.